in those early 1930s, you can read an inscription on the benches. Jews must not sit on these benches. You could say, it's unpleasant, it's not fair, it's not right. But after all, there are so many benches around. You can sit somewhere else. Of course you can. There was a swimming pool, and over its door an inscription read, Jews are forbidden to enter. You could say, well, pleasant this is not, but there are so many places in Berlin where you can take a bath or swim, so many lakes, canals, it's nearly like Venice. At the same time, you can read somewhere else, Jews must not belong to German singing associations. So what? All right, they want to sing, they want to make music. Let them just meet somewhere else, they will do their singing. All right. What comes up later is an order, really. More of an order than of an inscription. Non-Aryan children must not play with Aryan children, with the German children. All right, they'll play on their own. And then you read, we only sell bread and food to Jews after 5 p.m. Right, less choice. This makes your life harder. But after all, after 5 p.m. you can still do your shopping. And that's how it is done, step by step, slowly. And they become acquainted with that thought, familiar with the idea that they are different people, that they are alien people, that they are the people that carry germs, that cause pandemics. And this now is a horror. What came later was something that developed immediately. Jews could not get jobs, they could not emigrate. And then, quickly, Jews would be sent to ghettos, to Kaunas, to Riga, to my ghetto. Auschwitz did not fall suddenly from the skies. It was pittering-pattering in all those tiny steps. It was approaching until what happened here behind me did happen.
Okay, hi Damien. So we're starting with that video. I know it's powerful. Just to give the show some context. And basically, since Damien and I have been starting doing the marches, we've been hit with the fact that we're being done by the Proud Boys. They've been infiltrated by white supremacists and fascists constantly, and we've always laughed it off. But then we actually got approached by this guy.
And I'm sure this guy tonight will deny that the Holocaust even exists, to be honest. That's the sort of person I imagine he is, that he won't even accept that it happened.
Anyway, what we wanted to do, and I know it's hard, but we thought rather than try to deny this is happening and rather than try hide it, we thought, well, why don't we talk to him?
Like we did with the troll. We had the troll on. We weren't afraid of that. And,
why don't we talk to him? And I'll just see. Yeah, he's in now. Why don't we talk to him to see?
He's playing a game with us anyway. The fact that we've had to go an hour later, it's all about his own agenda. Clearly, it's about his own agenda, and he's pushed us back and back and back. I'm surprised he didn't try and make it even later.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm amazed that he turned up. But look, we're going to talk to him. And we're just going to have a conversation. It's going to be a difficult conversation, but why can't we have difficult conversations?
We can.
This is, he's calling himself one of the captains of the white supremacist movement, and he's one of the main infiltrators, if not the main infiltrator, of the freedom protest movement. How you going, Rukshan?
No, it's not funny. It's not funny. Racism is not funny, Rukshan. Don't start laughing straight away because there's nothing funny about racism.
I'm not an actor. I'm a player.
I should just come clean and just profess my white supremacy here and just definitely.
You're a grandmaster. You are the grandmaster.
Grandmaster. Yeah.
And what a subversive game you're playing, my friend. What a subversive game.
It's just to get our ID.
The names I've been called,
Now, Rukshan, sorry. Let's begin, Rukshan. You have gone from being a wedding photographer, and this we're joking around. In case anyone joke, he's not what we said. That's aimed at the mainstream media, and we got you. And now what we want to talk about is you were once a wedding photographer, and now you are a living folk hero. That's what you are. It's I have to say it. I'm always smiling when I'm watching your live stream, especially of the marches, because all we hear is, I love you, Rukshan, Rukshan, can I take a selfie, Rukshan, I love you, and there's literally, you're sitting there watching, and why is the water of the tide of these people partying like the Dead Sea, and then comes Rukshan with his camera. You are beloved, man. How did that happen? How did you go from wedding photographer to folk hero? And I know you're a humble man, so in your own thing.
No, I was going to say, it's very, very kind of you to say that. I mean, I don't see myself in that manner at all. And just touching on what you just said, you know, one of the things that I've found as I've progressed through doing this kind of work is that, you know, it was actually, you know, I could get different shots and be a bit more creative when I wasn't this kind of someone that people knew. So it's kind of changed a little bit in terms of how I approach my work. But, you know, I'm very, you know, very grateful and, you know, very, very humbled as well by the support that I've received from the public. And honestly, I'm just going out there and, you know, trying to offer just a more, you know, just to match my name, a real perspective in terms of, you know, not judging people, being empathetic, and really just showing things as they are and letting people make up their own minds who are watching back at home. And I think a lot of people are resonating with what I'm doing just because it's, you know, potentially more real and maybe more pure in terms of what it is. And how I got here from being a wedding photographer, I'm actually still a wedding photographer and wedding videographer. So in between all this stuff, I still continue to do weddings, but, you know, it's definitely has changed my focus and, you know, what I hope to do going forward as well. And yeah, it's just been a very, very, you know, interesting time for me over the past, you know, at least the past 10 months. But, you know, over the past 20 months of this pandemic, you know, it's been as negative as everything has been, you know, there has been this kind of growth in my own life in terms of how I see the world and, you know, how I think as an individual in terms of the work that I'm doing, how I fit into that world as well. And, you know, I'm very grateful for a lot of the opportunities that I've had, particularly as this is a distressing time for many. And I totally understand that. So, you know, I'm approaching this as carefully as I can. And I think, you know, I'm very aware of what's going on and what's happening around me as well.
What was the first thing that got you in though? What triggered you to think, oh, I might go out and film this or even live stream it? Because I'm not even sure, to be honest, that anyone had even heard the term much live stream before you did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
look, yeah,
but no one really made it a household name where now everybody's doing it. You know, what was the
I
thing?
think for me, like, yeah, originally I wasn't actually live streaming. I had started going to the protest probably around late October last year, and I was just really kind of doing more, you know, filming stuff the way that I would film at a wedding, for instance, and kind of trying to tell this, you know, give this different perspective through my cinematography. And the only reason I actually started live streaming, interestingly, was for my own protection from the authorities, from the police. So the live stream was an unedited record of the things that I was doing, the interactions I was having with the people around me, and in particular, the interactions that I was having with the police. And that's really why I started actually just live streaming and recording everything in full, because I didn't want to be taken out of context. I didn't want to, you know, end up in a court somewhere and they'll say one thing and, you know, something else will happen. So I think a lot of the interactions that I had early on with the police is what prompted me to live stream what I was doing. And, you know, I saw that, you know, people were actually starting to watch these as well. So I just kept doing it from that point onwards. It wasn't something that I set out to do specifically. It was more of like the background thing that I was doing. And that's kind of become, you know, the more than my kind of edits and, you know, that kind of cinematography style work, the highlight style work, it's become the dominant thing. Yeah.
It's almost like a new art form in itself, a new sort of news media art form because it's unedited. But
I think, yeah, I think it's new to Australia. Yeah.
Yeah. What made you come to the protest? What made you come to the protest though? Because you're a wedding photographer.
Yeah. What made me
shut down? What actually made you start coming to the protest? Because that was in a time when you weren't allowed to go. So most people were scared of staying at home. What made you leave your house?
Yeah, so I had been a few months prior to that. I'd started up my Real Rukshan page, and I was kind of posting like political commentary, a lot of memes, just a lot of kind of commenting on press conferences and things like this. And what made me go out was that I was seeing this kind of mobile phone footage coming out from protests, and I was watching the mainstream media coverage of it, and then something didn't quite add up between what I was seeing in the I guess the mobile video clips and what was being reported on the news. Now I live in the city, so I'm in the heart of all this, and there was a protest at North Melbourne, the market, Vic Market, and some of the footage that I saw on TV and some of the mobile phone footage I was seeing, it didn't really match up. And I saw this like riot police walking in between the food stalls in the market, and saw all these images. You remember that, right? I saw all this kind of stuff, and it looked like I just didn't recognize my city. I thought like this looks like really over the top and crazy. The media is reporting in a certain way. I was curious enough to want to go out there and see it for myself and document it myself. And the first protest I went to, I filmed what was happening. I saw what was happening, and I realized like the portrayal within the media of the people there was totally disconnected from reality. It didn't reflect what was happening on the ground at all. And the kicker for me was that I had seen a few thousand people, and then when I watched the news that night, they were reporting a few hundred people at this protest, whatever. That really spurred me on to keep going to document these things, because it was very obvious that the media were playing a very, very deceptive game in terms of how they were portraying what was happening in our city. And there was a lot of distress, a lot of disharmony in our city, a lot of people struggling, and the media were not willing to tell that story. And I thought I could potentially capture some of that and share that with the audience that I had, and it kind of went from that point forward.
What are you doing, Damien?
I'm having a few issues, Michael.
As usual, we're not as great with our technical equipment as our young gentleman. But Rukshan, I saw you. You were being pepper sprayed. I got pepper sprayed too, but you got pepper sprayed. I remember meeting you just before. I remember hearing people going, Rukshan, Rukshan. I was thinking, Rukshan, who's this Rukshan? Because I just come to the march to see it. And that was down at Flinders Street. And that was the first time I think we saw those weapons. Was that correct? Or had you seen them before, those strange gel guns?
No, that was the first time I'd seen those kind of gel guns. Yeah. And, a lot of people, some people are saying just on this pepper spray thing, because it's very like, for me, I've enjoyed, a very kind of peaceful life in Melbourne, let's say. I'm not someone that's gone to protests and things like this throughout my life. In some way sheltered from some of these things with interactions with the police and things like this. So a lot of this is actually very new for me. And even like being in those situations, that tear gas spray or whatever it was that affected me, like those are very new things to me. And it's like they're things that I've learned to kind of get over or deal with and overcome in a way as I go forward as I was going forward with these protests. And that actual seeing those weapons, that was like going to the next level is what I'm trying to say. Because when you first see those weapons, you don't realize that they're non-lethal, like that's what they claim anyway, right? They could be, right? But I'm saying you realize, you think, well, they're pulling out live ammunition almost, because if it's all new to you and you're not expecting the police to be behaving in that manner, you see these weapons being drawn that look like real deadly weapons, guns. That was like a shock to me at that moment. And obviously since then I've been through that and then realized that this is what it is, and going forward it's a bit different. But at that exact moment, that was like a it's almost like my worldview of Australia, my worldview of Melbourne, and my worldview of the Victoria Police at that moment really did change. And I think unless you were there, unless you witnessed that and saw that at that time, it's hard to kind of have that same sense about it.
So you talk about yourself too, Rukshan, being like professional reporter. But do you think it's really hard to maintain an impartiality? Because to me, it does feel like you're sympathetic to the freedom movement. And I'd say CAF certainly think of that, campaign against racism and fascism, because we saw exactly what they did to you there. And that's what gave us the idea, obviously, to pretend that you were the white supremacist.
That's where we got the idea.
Look, I think it's a very human thing. Like, this is not something which hasn't impacted, everyone. You've seen that across mainstream media reporting when they're reporting on something, for instance. So a lot of these reporters will interject their own personal biases and views into it, whether that's around people not being vaccinated or whatever it is, because things that are happening in our city right now are having an impact on my business, on my family, on whether I can see my parents, whatever it is. So I think it's hard to detach your own views on certain things when it comes to these things. And as a person, as someone that values things like law enforcement or human rights and things like this, when you see injustice, you're going to comment on it. Our media very famously all the time comments on the injustices we're seeing in China. Right now, they're talking about genocide in China and human rights in China and things like this. So it's one thing to comment about it when you're detached from it and talk about it happening in another country. But when you're seeing it happening in front of you, whether you're a reporter or whether you're, whatever it is, it's hard to not say what you're seeing as what it is. And a lot of the times when I say these things, I say, I'm telling you that this is what it is, and this is how I'm interpreting what I'm seeing. And I think people misinterpret that as being a bias or being sympathetic towards the people protesting and stuff. It's not so much that. It's like police are shooting on unarmed people, and that's not something that we would normally accept in a country like Australia. So as a reporter or as an independent journalist, whatever it is, I'm just saying that how it is, and I think people have trouble. What should I say? The police are justified in shooting these people because of this and that. I'm looking at more from a human rights perspective and saying, this is not normally what happens in Australia. So as a person that's lived here my whole life, this looks wrong. And even as a journalist, I think there's a point where you can say something is wrong.
As a man of Sri Lankan descent, do you feel like Australia is obsessed, particularly the left, is obsessed with painting Australia as this horribly racist country?
Yes, I think there's an obsession. Let's say the left-leaning politics or within the left of painting Australia as racist. My experience and the experience of many others of multicultural backgrounds that have grown up in this country is not of this racist Australia. It's a country of great opportunity and great prosperity for people that work hard. And my family, my parents, and myself, even to have a business and go through the education system here and have a diverse mix of friends and just this wonderful experience in Melbourne. I think that's the majority of people of multicultural people in this country experience Australia in this manner. Of course, there are going to be minor incidents and issues and certain, I guess, systemic things that could potentially be not favorable to people of different ethnic backgrounds or whatever it is. But I think the overwhelming nature of Australia is not this racist country. And and that's why it was very disturbing for me to actually see this interpretation of the protesters during the lockdown time as being racist and all this kind of stuff. And it just didn't make sense, because that's not the Australia, and definitely that's not the Melbourne and Victoria that I've grown up in.
Has it been weaponized by the left as a source of political power?
I think so. I think they just throw out the race thing. Why would you, if you want to protest against anti-lockdown protesters, why don't you just protest against that? Why associate it's a anti-racism protest as well? Of course it's being weaponized as something that it's not real to scare off other people. And I think even the labeling of me as this kind of just because I'm patriotic about this country, just because I defend certain values and things in this country, the first response I get from some of these people is that, oh well, you're owned by these people, they're controlling you, they're using you. It's almost like they want me to be a victim and hate this country.
Yeah.
And that's not the case at all. This is coming from myself as a free thinking individual person who is of an ethnic background. This is my views, and it's a normal thing for people like me, people of color, people from different parts of the world, to be patriotic and love the country that they live in. Because even back home within Sri Lanka, like, people are patriotic there, and they have right-leaning views, left-leaning views, but they're still patriotic about their country. So it's not just because I talk about certain things doesn't mean that all of a sudden I'm being controlled by, these white supremacists and things like this. Like, that's the way they paint it. They don't even give me the credit of being, that's his own individual ideas and his own individual thoughts. The best that they can do is say, this guy's, being controlled by these right-wing people. He doesn't know anything better. He's just being used by it, like, it's just
like a relentless attempt.
I think it's
I feel like it's a
and it's
like a relentless attempt. No, just to say, can I follow on that? Just a relentless attempt to catch you out. Because I know when Michael and I were joking, saying, so we're going to have Rukshan come on and be the white supremacist. Well, then corollary, I thought, well, is that racist to suggest that a man of color can't be a white supremacist? You know, I mean, where does it end? It has no end point. It's just leveled to absolute absurdity. Where there's no argument in good faith.
That's
could
right.
We just
and
move,
that's the problem.
Could we just move to the shrine? Now, the shrine was an enormous day, and were you aware when you were shooting the footage, or later home when you were watching it, that you'd actually shot an immense moment, an incredible moment in history? And it really is.
No.
But when they came and they shot the Australians running away in the back, and they're all dressed in black, it was just, there's a lot of people that actually still haven't seen it. I can't believe it, but most people have. Were you aware of what was happening as you were doing it? Like a sense, this is momentous, or were you just in shock?
No, I had no awareness. I mean, I had been obviously going every single day, and it's kind of the world that I was in, just going out there and filming and doing these things. I wasn't even really aware of how many people were watching, all the time that I was doing it. Here and there, I would see it. But I mean, to think that those things could happen, it was a possibility. Like, I was kind of seeing it unfold in front of my eyes, but it was still a shock when it did happen. It had escalated from, the couple of days before that, when I had seen the weapons at the Flinders Street, and then now it's like at the shrine, they've got the same kind of weapons, and now they're firing at people at the shrine. So it's like that continued escalation, but as a point of history, or as a certain type of thing that should be looked back upon as controversial or historical, whatever it is, I wasn't aware at that time. For me, it was just a matter of being focused on documenting it, recording it, and live streaming it. I was really just focused on the work and just kind of capturing what was going on.
Did you think? Why do you think the police took so long to remove those on the shrine? Because that's where Damien and I got arrested. Why do you think they had that standoff for so long?
Yeah, I mean, part of me, I feel the police were aware of the symbolic nature of the place we were at, and were given some sort of order, or I'm not exactly sure, but they probably had the clearance to shoot at that place if they had to. And I think they wanted to maybe potentially avoid doing that, is potentially why they took so long. It's really hard for me to say what they were thinking, but
we're already after your opinion.
Kind of
yeah,
that's kind of the sense that I got. I mean, it's almost like that place. I mean, I tell people about what I witnessed that day, and I don't think people intended to be there in the manner that they were. They were kind of, they ended up there because what was happening in the city was, the police just kind of shooting at people, trying to congregate in certain parts of the city, right?
So
that was what's happening in the city. Yeah, and then people kind of just got together, and they were marching, and somehow they ended up at that shrine, and the police kind of almost like kettled people there, right? And then it's really like, it was just a shock, to be honest, everything that unfolded afterwards. And
what did unfold?
I really didn't.
Did the world media go pretty nuts for you after that? Because suddenly you were on the world stage. you know?
Yeah, I mean that day, that day I had just because the day before the CFMEU stuff and those protests had kind of got a bit of press attention internationally, and I was actually doing a Fox News interview before I came to the shrine, and you know, for them, like, that was seeing the scenes of people, you know, with the union workers and all that kind of stuff unfolding. That was international kind of news, and you know, but that was kind of outdone and the Westgate and all that kind of stuff, and then that was kind of outdone by what happened at the shrine, because I think, especially in an Australian context, because that place holds so much meaning in many different ways. You know, in my opinion, to see unarmed people fleeing a place like that, a place that represents, you know, in many ways freedom, and you know, in that place you have this there's a pillar there, and it's got the different places that, you know, our diggers went and fought for freedom and rights for people in other countries around the world. And you know, we're at that place, a sanctuary of all sorts, and to think that, you know, unarmed people would be fleeing from there while the police force, who are not a military force, are firing on civilians. They were behaving that way, yes, but they were firing on civilians, and as they were fleeing that place. And this is the kind of stuff that we go to war for in other countries. And you know, it's a very kind of, you know, you know the symbolic nature of that place. And you know, for me, as someone that's working within the media space, you know, I can already see how it's going to be interpreted by certain media as well, and how people are going to use that as, you know, in a way, propaganda, to diminish what happened to the people that day. But I think it's very important to remember, no matter what the symbols and stuff that we attach to that place, at the end of the day, unarmed people were fleeing from the police force who were shooting at them at a sacred place which represents freedom. And that's just the matter of fact what it is.
That's what it is. That's what it was captured. Can I ask, did the world media, when they interviewed you, did they treat you differently from the Australian media? I mean, has the Australian media even interviewed you at all?
Yeah, I've had some interviews with Sky News Australia.
Rita Mahoney.
With Rita, Outsiders, Rowan Dean. You know, I guess the world media, you know, they're more curious about what's happening in our country, strangely. I mean, they're more curious about what's happening to the people. They're more curious about these interactions between people and the police. Whereas our media...
But you were interviewed by Fox overseas as well, weren't you, Rukshan? You were interviewed by Fox overseas as well. So it wasn't CNN or anyone that was good. Okay.
No, it wasn't CNN stuff, no. So it's been, I guess, more of the conservative press in America, Fox News, and I think GB News in the UK I did an interview as well. So it is these more kind of conservative press that touch on these topics, because even within CNN and things like this, some of this stuff is not happening. If you turn into this channel, into CNN, these things aren't going on in Australia, you know. And it's what our media here does, our mainstream media, when they touch on the topics of protests, when they touch on the shrine, you know, they're not interviewing people that were there and asking them, you know, how it felt and what happened, you know, what do you think? They're just going straight to the authority. They're going to the police commissioner, and they're allowing the police commissioner to give his version of events. And it's almost like state media style propaganda, where the authorities get the platform. They get to, you know, do everything they did at that shrine, and then they get to tell people, this is why we did it, this is how these people are bad, and so forth. There is no balance between, you know, is this a good thing, is this a bad? There's none of that happening. It's more so, let's just get the authorities' message out. Let's make sure that this is covered in this way. And I think that's what the international press weren't doing. That the international press were interested in the other side of the story as well. And I think that's why they reached out to me, because I was on the ground that day.
Well, Rukshan, we've got a ton of trolls coming in now, which I expected. And recently we allowed one of the trolls in, and one of the trolls that's here now, it's going crazy, is one of the main accusers of you, and he's claiming that he is the leader of the white supremacist thing. So I'm going to bring him in so we can actually have a conversation with him. So this is the actual leader of the Victorian white supremacist movement. G'day, Jerry.
Good day, man. How are you?
They're all laughing.
Oh,
They
my
all think
God.
it's hilarious. They think racism is hilarious. These guys, I tell you,
It's my boss. It's my boss. It's my
Oh, you're my boss.
Hey, you're
commander in
sick.
chief.
You're
You're
sick.
Commander in
you're-
chief. Please, Jerry, help me improve my white supremacy.
I can't take this
I would have
away.
kept my Ku Klux Klan man up if I had enough.
You can put him back now.
No,
Gary, thank you
He's
for
upsetting
coming on.
people in the
Thank you for
comments.
coming onto this show. Thank you for waiting patiently.
Michael, I just want to say thank you very much for surprising Rukshan.
Oh,
and me, Jerry.
I didn't tell Damien either.
Yeah.
Wow, thank God you didn't tell them. I was supposed to be with Rukshan tonight in his studio.
Yeah,
Like I
we're
told
Jerry,
really plotting
Jerry,
our
there's going to be
next
enough room
move.
for all of us in South Sudan because I feel like we all want to come to South Sudan because Victoria's fallen, you know.
I'll
South
tell you
Sudan,
one you guys in South Sudan. I want you guys there. And I thank Rukshan, to be honest. He did a very great job. Michael, you met me a few months ago or a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
But me and Rukshan goes way back to the days when Monica Smith and Morgan start having the bus. That was before the protest was actually not allowed to be illegal. And that's when I met Rukshan. I met Rukshan in Treasury Garden. And who knows, we are here today fighting for the
Jerry
survival of-
radicalized me.
No, I did not.
Clearly.
For the sake of the viewers of the cafe lockout, Rukshan is the media personality for the white supremacists. I am the black. I'm the political white supremacist for the political side, while Michael and his team are the black supremacists for the protesters.
That's
the
logic of the left, basically, Jerry, right there. That's their
Jerry,
logic in a nutshell.
Jerry, what made you come to the protests initially?
To be honest, I will say, unfortunately, I failed to mention the reason that made me join the protest in my speech in Ballarat. The reason I joined the protest was actually Zoa. You know Zoa, the lady that was arrested by the police
Zoe,
in Ballarat?
Oh, Zoe. Yeah.
Zoe
That was actually the reason. And I'm so sorry to Zoe that I did not actually mention her when I was speaking up. It was full control. A police arresting a pregnant woman in her own house. She was not posting any threat. That was actually the reason I started joining the protest, to be honest. That was
the time. That alarmed me as well, Jerry. I remember
And
that
me.
too.
In fact, she told me she only had 5. She'd set up a protest. She only had 5 likes. Only 5 people were coming. And then these people, she didn't know who they were. They were in a house. They handcuffed and they took away. She couldn't believe it. What's interesting, Rukshan, and I was going to get back, is basically these acts of violence against us, instead of suppressing the crowd, actually give birth to new protesters who are now becoming quite prominent. You know, the Shrine gave birth. I've had people come up and saying, I saw what happened at the Shrine, now I come every March. So it's not actually working. So with Dan's going to get his new laws and everyone's concerned, okay, he's going to come crushing. But it's like when you crush here, all these others pop up here thinking there's something wrong. So it's really interesting to see what will happen when he gets these laws, you know, because it's that's a statement on the
I think people, I mean, people are definitely more kind of politically attuned and politically aware, but not even that, not just politics aside, just the human level. When you're seeing your fellow, Victorians and fellow Melburnians being treated in a certain manner, and you can see the innocence, and you can see that they're just like you, for instance. That really, I think that impacts people, and I think the government doesn't like that. The government, the media, they don't like that. They don't like the reality of what's happening, because even for me, like I said, turning point for me was really when physically going to this protest and then seeing that these are real people. It's just like a business owner, whatever it is, like that changes your perspective. And I think that's why we're seeing this continuous growth at these protests, because people are coming out to represent the community and to tell each other in the community that, you know, we're here for you. So I think it's part of it's political, but a lot of it is more so that community aspect, and I think it's kind of what you touched on.
What compelled you to speak, Jerry? Sorry, Jerry.
Just about what Rukshan is saying.
Yeah.
Where I came from, and most of us in this community, is that the community life where you, me, and others people come together to support each other is lost in this country. It is all about the government. And the government is so much afraid, so much scared that we are actually restoring that back. I got people, when I drove to Rukshan, and Rukshan took me with his car, we drove together to Ballarat. I took a photo and I tweeted it. Instead of appreciating people that are coming together from different countries, they're accusing us of being paid by Maddox, being paid by Sky News. People will never believe that community life exists.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that make me go there is because I get a lot of hugging, I get a lot of love, a lot of support from people that I haven't asked them anything. They don't even know what my financial condition is.
I have evidence. You're a heartthrob.
They don't even know what my financial condition is. And as long as they keep attacking me like that on false ground, it actually motivated me more to step out there and meet people. Let's simple example. I got a grandmother, on the 20th, I think it was on the 30th of October. After I spoke in the rally, I went to the crowd and walked around. Then some young people want to take photos with me. And I saw a grandmother on a wheelchair. The signal on her eyes was that she wanted me to talk to her. So I finished with the teenagers and I walked to her. And the first thing she told me, Michael, was that my late husband, when South Sudanese were coming to Australia, told her that now that you got the South Sudanese people coming to Australia, the values that we are losing slowly will be restored by South Sudanese community. Because her husband has happened to be in South Sudan before. He worked in the British Army. He knows who we are. And she told me straight away, she said, 3-5 years ago, when I heard about the news about the South Sudanese community being vilified in the media, being what my husband not expect of them, I lost hope. And she said, when she saw me speaking up in Parliament, the first thing she did was to walk to the grave of her husband. And she told her husband on the grave that your prayers are now answered. This is the man that knows who we are as the South Sudanese. The South Sudanese that are being portrayed by the mainstream media, by the Labour Party, is not who we are. Who we are is what you, Rukshan, and others are seeing.
How are they being portrayed by the Labour Party, Jerry?
They're being portrayed as victims that are being protected from you.
Because, and I remember your speech at the Parliament, you were talking about things which I found really interesting. You were saying because it's monetized to play that card. Is that right?
That's all right. To be honest with you, there are a lot of community leaders that never made a point to reach out to the white Australian because they get a lot of funding from the government. They get grant from the government in the name of the community. But whatever they're doing with that money is not clear on the ground. You got a lot of teenagers locked in. You got a lot of single mothers, like I spoke in Flagstaff Garden. Where I live now in Western Suburb, there's a lot of single mothers that need your help. The government and the community leaders that they work with are not willing to help them.
It's interesting though, isn't it, Jerry? Because it's like they want to pretend there's this pristine white Australia that's racist, but then I look around Australia and I don't see white Australia. So what does that mean to Rukshan if you're playing us as the racist? Does he just disappear? He doesn't matter anymore because he's a different ethnicity than you are. How does it even begin to make sense? It's hollow. It falls apart. Yet we still persist with it. And it frightens people like Michael and I, obviously, into compliance because that's what it's meant to do. But the great thing about what's happening now, I think this COVID narrative is so extreme and it's so dangerous to our existentially. It's so dangerous that I'm happy to have these conversations suddenly. in good faith, because otherwise, where are we going to end up? We're going to end up as slaves to their agenda.
Can I ask you, Jerry, when was the first speech you did? And what was it like doing your first speech?
The first speech I did was actually in Australia Day Parade on the 26th of January.
Okay.
It was in St Kilda, Katina Garden.
Okay.
Katani.
Katani Garden, yeah. Sorry for my accent. It was Katani Garden. But before that, I was hosted by Andrew Ball on Sky News.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Had you done a speech before like this? Is this your, or were you an activist in Sudan or in South Sudan? You know, or was this your first time?
When I was in the university, I have a bachelor's degree in economics and political science. I did it in Kenya. When I was in university, I was involved in a lot of international youth activism. So I traveled to Southeast Asia, I traveled to America, I traveled to Europe on international youth. I think it was called Millennium Development Goals. So I was very much active in those ones, and I traveled around the world. I didn't come to Australia, but I traveled around the world, and I was very much informed on what is happening. So I was a bit an activist on the youth side. And before that, I was actually a Marxist in the university. I was nicknamed as Karl Marx.
Karl Marx.
We're all Marxists at uni. That's all right. You're allowed to be a Marxist at uni.
That's what I was going to announce you as, Karl Marx.
Exactly. I don't want it anymore. I'm not a Karl Marx anymore. But I used to be called Karl Marx.
Rukshan,
we'll forgive you.
I got two questions for Rukshan. One, do you think there's any Sri Lankan in Australian history that has as many selfies taken with them as you?
I don't know. Maybe there is. Who knows?
The answer is no.
The
answer is simply no. I think in one march you already
one syllable answer on that.
I think it's going to be very thin. But the other thing is, have you done a speech? I've never seen you. Have you done a speech that we've missed? Because you actually have a great voice.
No, I've never done a speech. I've done like I guess videos where I've done like a monologue and put some music and talked about a certain topic, but I've never done
smart because he knows then you don't get arrested. If you don't make a speech, you don't get arrested. You can pretend just to be the cameraman, you're fine.
But do you think if you did do a speech, then it would be very hard to be seen as sort of a balanced journalist? That it would be saying, okay, I'm doing a speech now, I'm definitely with these freedom fighters.
Oh, look, I think it just depends on the topic that it's covering. Like if I was speaking about, for instance, the media or something about Julian Assange or something like this, raising awareness, I think it just depends on the context of what I'm talking about. For me, I would I like to remain as like a bit more out of it as much as possible, just so I can kind of be more objective and capture things in a certain way. And I think the speaking that I do is really through my work, and I think I think that serves an important purpose in whichever way it's interpreted. I think that's where my speaking is done.
And I know you shot I just got two more questions. I know you shot the shooting of the people, but in all this live streaming you've done, is there anything that you've captured that's really remained with you? Maybe even something small, that maybe people have missed, or something that really moved you?
No, not one singular thing that I can point to. Again, like I think it's just overall, just looking at everything as one thing. If I step back now and look at it, I think it's really just seeing, this kind of, we live in this country where, a lot of us just kind of don't even know our neighbor sometimes, right? And there's this kind of community thing, like what Jerry was talking about, is maybe something that doesn't really exist anymore, and to see it kind of come together in the way that it has, especially in the last few weeks, to see the diversity, to see all these flags, to see all these people kind of marching under the Australian flag, but also representing their countries as well. just seeing that in this country, I think that's really moved me, because I think that's what Australia aspires to be, and I think this is what we talk about it in this country, right? Our politicians and stuff talk about this great multicultural nation. Well, we're seeing that on the streets, and it's a shame that it's not being acknowledged for what it is when it's actually coming together and doing it in this fashion for something that's impacting everyone. And for me to actually witness that in real life, I think that's been something that will stay with me forever. And it's great to actually finally see that in that fashion. And yeah, I think that's what I'll take away from a lot of what I've been
unified
doing.
in adversity.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's what brings us together, right? Because normally within this multicultural nation that we live in, a lot of the times people are living in fear of different people, right? Whether it's like Jerry was talking about the African community and all these kind of things. There's always this kind of division between different people. And I grew up in I talk about this a lot. I grew up in Dandenong, and it's one of the most multicultural parts of Australia, I think, in terms of diversity. And I never had that experience growing up, so I didn't know what it was like just to be like in this kind of white neighborhood, for instance, or just in like a Indian neighborhood or whatever it is. I was always around different people from different parts of the world and grew up with all sorts of people in my school and all sorts of cultures and food and dancing and all these kind of things. So I've grown up in multicultural Australia full on.
Yeah, me
and
too.
that's my lived experience. So for me then to be out there amongst that and see that in the actual greater Australia, it's been amazing. But
do you feel like you have an affinity for? But do you feel like you have an affinity for people of your cultural background?
As in my actual ethnic background, or just in general?
Yeah, your ethnic background. Yeah.
No, not in that fashion. No, definitely not. I feel like I have an affinity for the aspirations of this country to be kind of like this welcoming multicultural nation, in a manner which kind of still at the heart of it, we are respectful of the traditions and the things that make us Australian, I guess. Not it's great to celebrate our differences, but we also need to celebrate the things that unite us and bring us together.
Do you think there's a limit to immigration in that respect? Like, do you think there's a limit to immigration, or?
I think it's not so much in immigration. I think it's in the manner in which people are educated in this country. In the manner in which people are taught to, I guess, assimilate and be a part of the community and not be afraid of interacting with other people. One of the things that I see a lot today is this kind of enclaves, these kind of segregated communities almost. Use that word segregated, but you have these communities in different areas and they don't really come together, right? A lot of the time.
That's really true.
And for me anyway, Dandenong, that southeast area was kind of like a melting pot. There was a bit of everyone, and I think that was great because absolutely. A lot of my friends are Serbian or Croatian, Bosnian, Indian, Afghanistani, European, Greek, Italian. Like that was just amazing to have that. But we're all still kind of Australian, and we had that same shared experience. So
but the danger is we might become kind of ghettoized.
Yeah, we've moved away from that almost. Like I remember proudly singing the anthem. I remember proudly being Australian when I was growing up. And I've seen Sri Lankan kids today who are who their parents grew up here like me. But these children that are born today in this country feel more victimized than what I felt as an immigrant in the 90s. Like they feel more oppressed in this nation than you know what I mean. Like there's a bit of that going on. And I think a lot of that.
Why is that? Why is that, Rukshan? Sorry, and I know you want to come in, Jerry. I really want to bring you in.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with I think policies, the media, the way they show people as being victims. I think we're Americanizing Australia in terms of our this victim class mentality that exists between people. So a lot of these kids are growing up believing that there's no opportunities for them, that there's systemic racism and all these kind of things in a way that it impacts their potential and their possibility. And I never had that growing up, and my parents and stuff never told me that I'm in a racist country, and I never heard those things going through school. I was in the country of opportunity, and anything was possible. And I think we've kind of dropped that on its head, and now all of a sudden everyone's a victim. And I think a lot of that has to do with the politics of the day and the way that the media plays and feeds on these things to push other agendas. And I think it's very sad to see that happening in Australia, because I can, as a person, as a immigrant, as an ethnic Australian, I can see that happening within my own communities. And I think Jerry might be seeing this as well within his community. And it's a real thing. It's actually happening. And I think we need to, the people that can change this, I think, are people like Jerry, are people who have grown up as, people of ethnic backgrounds in this country that can see this happening. They can perhaps tell these people that, no, you are not the victim that they're telling you that you are. You can rise above that, and there's great opportunity and great potential for you in Australia. And if you are yourself, like I have been in the past couple of months, and really just being myself, come out there, everyone in this country will embrace you. They'll be kind to you, whatever it is. You can be yourself. There's no fear in being who you are. You don't have to look at yourself as a race.
And it's a great opportunity to segue to Jerry there. I can see you champing at the bit there, Jerry. You've been very patient for a while. So sorry, there's stuff you want to say?
I actually just have to agree with everything Rukshan said. I think you actually don't need me here after what Rukshan have said, except that I just need to give them the face.
What do you hope to achieve politically, Jerry? Because it feels to me like there's some political motivation with you. Is there something you hope to achieve?
Before I answer your political question, I just want to say exactly that the Australia that you and Michaels and all your viewers are actually trying to restore is the Australia that me and Rukshan are actually trying to talk about now. The Australia we have now is Australia that is being politically motivated, with the politicians that are willing to collide. Look, a picture like what we have now on the screen will never mean anything to a politician that thrives on dividing us. Mm-hmm. The four of us now on the screen here, this wouldn't be the nice picture that Randu would want to tweet on his Twitter.
Well, that's why we did the joke about the white supremacists as well.
Exactly.
I wanted to hit that point.
Now, me coming 5 years in Australia, and I got somebody from Sri Lanka who have grown up here, went to high school here, and we're standing with you here. This is exactly what Australia is. And my motivation to my community is that most of my community leaders and my community young people are being indoctrinated by the mainstream media.
Well, that was my question. Can I just ask a question, and we'll go straight into that question? Why do you think the mainstream media are so determined to lie about the crowds? Which is why Rukshan started filming them, why I photographed them as well. Why are they so determined to, week after week, lie about them? What is the motivation behind that, in your opinion?
I grew up in Africa watching CNN, watching BBC. I thought these were the most authoritarian, authentic media houses in the Western world. And when I came to Australia, I found out that these are the most distrustful media houses you can ever watch.
Wow.
And the agenda being pushed by the mainstream media on the left is not what real Rukshan is trying to push.
Yeah.
It looked like there's a conspiracy. There's a conspiracy in the Western world to undo everything that you guys did to bring the civilization to where it is. And mind you, I'm a student of political science. I grew up knowing very well that the best political leaders, the best political system is in the Western world. I'm also somebody who was brought up in a Christian family. So I grew up, before I came practically to live here and see what is happening here, I can tell, and believe me, when I took a photo with you, I took a photo with Rukshan in all these rallies, the people back in South Sudan who have not come here, they praise what I'm doing. Well, the government that actually gave me the privilege to be here freely does not praise what I'm doing. So there is a conspiracy without you knowing. There's a conspiracy in the Western civilization against your own civilization.
Oh, I think we know. Yeah.
But it's extraordinary. It's still extraordinary to hear it.
It is.
Coming back
and especially from someone that comes outside, because they've got fresh eyes. You know what I mean?
I grew up praising this civilization. That's what we've been taught in Africa.
Well, what they want to do with you, Jerry, is they want to appeal to your darker side and say, well, you gain from this conspiracy. You will gain from this conspiracy because it's about the destruction of white Western culture in many respects and what has been built up traditionally. So it's a real remarkable intellect to be able to sit outside of that and see that for the lie it is, because it actually doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about people of color. It just cares about power. It doesn't care about anybody.
That's correct. Can I just show this? Sorry, Joe. Can I just show this extraordinary picture of you? Because you said you came here 5 years ago. So 5 years you come. We had the biggest march in Australian history, and right at the speaker is this picture. And I think this picture should be in a Life magazine. See if it comes up there. I just think there's this incredible beauty and acceptance. Look, everyone's here listening to you talk. You know what I mean? There's huge respect there for you. And I think that's something beautiful about our country and beautiful about the marches. My soul actually fills up every time I go to the marches. I'm almost like addicted to the feeling of it. Sometimes I just walk behind Rukshan to pick up on the love, because he's just got this love fest going on with him.
That's how I walk behind you, Michael. I'm doing the same thing to you.
The two of you, let me just tell you one thing.
Jerry's behind me.
The person who took that picture her name is Carl J. Soda. She worked with Tropperfield. I didn't even know she took those pictures.
So Carl J. I wanted to Carl,
she's
on Instagram. There, Carl, get in contact because I'd love to tag you. I just didn't know who you were.
I will send you her official name. Now, when she took those pictures, that she sent them to me a day after. And it's gone, what that picture is portrayed back in my country, where I came from. If you go to my wall, you'll see some of the guys, journalists from South Sudan, who actually commented and actually tagged, shared that photo and posted it. That I'm doing some wonders in this country. Now, coming back to the point, this country, the real Australia, like I said in my speech, is a multinational country. Everybody that has got their own problem has been welcome in this country. And the reason we came to this country is because you are promised to be free, to take care of your life, to work hard, to be responsible. But the political left in this country, let's be honest, the political right is not doing anything good yet, I can agree, but the political left has got an agenda to destroy everything that unites us.
Yes.
That's why we're not happy to see the four of us standing here tonight.
I've been bowled over at times on the steps in particular. I've seen Indigenous people arguing for the restoration of the monarchy and the restoration of the Commonwealth as something, as an antidote to what we're experiencing now with the corporations taking over the culture. And that's something I would have never thought I would possibly hear.
Damien, let me just answer your question before you leave. I forgot there was a question about
ambition. Yeah.
Before I answer that, if I was today, let's be honest, if I was today an activist on the political left, ABC would be showing me every single day.
It would open the doors, my friend.
Oh my God, thank you.
It would lay down. They didn't open the doors for us on the weekend, I might add.
Rukshan on the Parliament steps.
The ABC prefer to talk about the South Sudanese teenagers who have not been cautioned or helped to integrate properly in this country. And because of the difficulties that they have faced, because they've got no responsible parent in their life, their economic condition are hard, they ended up becoming criminals. I don't blame them for that. ABC is more interested talking about them than talking about me or bringing me up to talk about them. And if Michael or Damien mention it, you will be referred to as racist. So I know,
and it's extraordinary. And look at the ABC. It's basically middle-aged white women. A couple of white men as well. It's extraordinary that they get away with it.
Somebody sent me a message yesterday, said, whatever you say, Jerry, if I say them, I'll be sued for being a racist.
Wow. Rukshan, have you been offered?
No, coming back to the political question. Damien.
Okay.
Yes, Jerry.
I am not sure what my life means in this country. I am here for a purpose. Few months ago, I never knew that I would meet Rukshan. I never knew I would meet you. I never knew I would meet Michael. If in the next 4 months or 6 months or in 12 months from now, that the next task for my life is to becoming a political leader, so be it.
So it's something you would be interested in. It's something you would be interested in, Jerry.
As long as I don't want to be in parliament. I don't want to get to politics because I'm a black man. I want to get to politics because I represent views of the entire Australian people. And majority of those people in Australia wanted me to be in their parliament, not because I'm a black man. I would never want to be in parliament for being a minority. I want to be in parliament because I represent views of so many Australians.
So we're seeing the collapse of the Australian institutions. Is that just something we're seeing? They're moribund, they're top heavy, and they're collapsing. And now they're lashing out because they're actually under so much pressure because they're collapsing under their own weight, the weight of their own ideological, staleness.
Yeah, I always refer to ideology as a parasite. If you are an ideological person, if you are held down by ideology, you can never know who you need to help on the other side because ideology divides you from the next person that needs your support. I was in the construction industry. And when I got into the construction industry, an Italian man gave me a job. And the job he gave me was on the union side. And when I found out that this is the CFMUU side, and based on my education in Africa, the first African man from Kenya, whose name is Tom Mboya, was the first trade unionist when I was studying in the university. So I started to attend the union meeting. I became a vocal person in the union, and I was hold on a minute. Sorry, guys, to take your time. I was interviewing this magazine. That was me there. That was me right here in the CFMU magazine.
Yeah.
The reason I went there, it was not because of anything. It was because I'm not applied to any ideology. I supported the union workers. I supported the workers based on where I came from. But after I started speaking out, I became an enemy.
So how do you begin to save a culture so full of self-loathing? So full of self-loathing. How do you begin to save that culture?
Question.
Sorry?
How do you begin to save a culture that it's so full of self-loathing? Its institutions actually profit from propagating that self-loathing. How do you begin to turn that around?
When I met Rukshan, I knew that whatever I say will reach you. And as long as I have Rukshan, I will keep on speaking. I don't need ABC anymore. As long as I have Rukshan, whatever I say will go across the world, and it has gone far. And that's why I said in my opening, as long as I have Rukshan, now they've got you, Damien, and Michael, I've got more than ABC. And the people following me and listening to my speeches will be the authentic people, not political robots who are listening to mainstream media. So I believe 100% that I can do whatever changes. And if you go,
and ironically, Trump is almost the template for that happening, isn't it? Like Trump is the template for that happening. He spoke directly to the people through, social media. And they stopped him doing that the second time, of course, Twitter, exactly. But he just went around the mainstream media and didn't bother with it. And the mainstream media absolutely caned him. But at the end of the day, it made no difference in that first election that he was successful in too. I think that's a template for all of us.
Can we just go back to that? Can we just go back to that great question that Damien asked?
That's what Rukshan said the other day when we were driving.
He didn't want to say it on air. He said, I say it to you, Jerry. Don't say it on air, mate.
Can we just go back to that great question that Damien asked about how do we save a culture that's just full of self-loathing? What do you think, Rukshan?
Oh, look, I think this is a part of it. This kind of thing is definitely a part of it, I think. And you're seeing it, right? You're seeing people kind of creating their own, media or creating their own, institutions in a way. And it's effective, and they're terrified. And you're seeing how terrified they are in the manner in which they're trying to suppress just ordinary people getting together, Can you imagine a time that we would think in Australia, like especially during the protests, for instance, bringing it back to the protests, that people would be organizing protests underground using, Telegram, an app from overseas or whatever it is, like in this kind of, underground manner, because, that's what we've been reduced to. And you're finding that people can overcome these things, and I think that's why they're going so hard on censorship and, you know, shutting down profiles, shutting down free speech. You have, you know, the government talking about all these kind of rules and laws around digital identities and cryptocurrencies and all these kind of things, because I think they're realizing that today, with the advantages of technology and the way that we're able to connect with each other as people, people can be very effective. You don't need the media to get your message out. If you can create a platform, if you can have people following, if you can connect like-minded people like we're doing right now,
it's the
those
democratization of the dissemination, isn't it, of media?
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. Like information.
Could I ask you, Rukshan,
so powerful.
We're talking before about the shrine. It's something I've said before, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. And so my idea is not so much that they worried about the history of the shrine, although that was very inconvenient to them that we ended up on the shrine, I would well imagine. But it was more they were worried about the politics of the day, and the government needed the narrative back. They'd lost the narrative out the front of the CFMEU. That was a humiliation to them. And then the next day, particularly when we climbed up on the Westgate Bridge and came down the other side and just treated the weaponized police force with absolute contempt, they just looked absolutely impotent on the side waiting for us to come down. I think that's why they came in so hard the next day to reclaim that narrative. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. They used the shrine as a piece of propaganda to cover up everything that happened last couple of days before it, right? Because all of a sudden it became, these people are disrespecting the shrine, these people are this, these people are that, just based on where they were. It was no longer about the issues they were protesting about. It was no longer about what the police did. The media could just focus on, oh, look, this place has this reverence that we show to this place, and these people are destroying that, and we're just going to focus on that. And you had, I take it back to Scott Morrison as the Prime Minister, for instance. I think he was overseas. I can't remember where he was, but the only comment that he could focus on was what people were doing at the shrine, not what happened at the shrine, but the fact that people were there, not that people were shot at the shrine, not that citizens that he is the Prime Minister for, his fellow Australians unarmed, were shot at the shrine. That wasn't the issue to these the politicians. The issue was that there were people there, and that potentially they were saying people were urinating and doing all these things. Those are the things that our political class decided to focus on, because I think, like you said, they wanted to discredit everything that happened leading up to it, and they thought that they could effectively use that. And I think in many ways, just again, this is my opinion, I think they were very effective at doing that very early on. Like you could see they were just going very hard on it, right? Hammering down on that fact of where that place was. And potentially they were maybe scared about a new history being created at that place. This kind of thing that we're talking about today. Because when we look at these moments years from now, if we're able to remember these times, as it happened, and the significance of those things, that's a part of our history. And we should always look back at this time and think, what have we learned from this? How did this change us, and all these things. So I think they might not even want that recorded. These.
But they appear to win the narrative, don't they? They appear to win the narrative, but then, because they report on their own narrative winning anyway. And you might talk to the odd person that goes, "Oh, no, I saw it on the telly. That's terrible. You shouldn't have never gone to the shrine. What were you thinking?" But then the reality is, there's 500 people, 1,000 people plus potentially gather on the streets of Melbourne, 4 weekends in a row, and you think, well, how much did they really win the narrative?
That's right. Yeah, we can never know from what they just tell us.
Yeah. We've been thinking, Rukshan, like we were taking videos that day, lots of people taking videos that day. Of course, you've got the amazing video. There was Joel Gilmore too, also took some. And Damien and I were arrested there, and the group that we were arrested with were like brothers now. And we also interviewed a lot of the young guys we were with who were picking up the rubbish before the police came and assaulted them. Of actually doing a special about it, maybe of bringing these things together as independent, maybe over the holiday season, and actually just cementing it as like, this is our version of what we saw happening at the shrine, and going from the start of when they were shooting in the streets, which is something Australia's never happened. The other question I had, which I never got to ask, was after you got pepper sprayed, what happened? Did you go blind? I mean, how did you get past that? Or were you prepared for that? Had you brought the stuff to clean your face, or because I ended up blind that
No.
day. I got helped by a lot of Australians. Beautiful, but what happened in
Yeah,
your
yeah.
case?
Look, the first time it happened, it was more of like it wasn't directly on me. The first time it happened, it was more like what was happening around me, and it kind of came onto me. So it wasn't as intense, but like that was the first time that I'd had that in my, that kind of reaction with my face, I guess, with my eyes. So I was momentarily blinded, and there was people around that helped me. The second time it happened, it was a bit more it was in that pass. It's near Q. I can't remember, but it was at the like
in
hills on either
Richmond.
side, and you're
Yeah,
in
the cutting.
Richmond. Yeah, like in
That's where the
the cutting.
grandmother
Yeah,
was sprayed.
yeah, where the grandmother was sprayed. So when it happened there, like I was actually wearing goggles for some of it, but police were pepper spraying from above. They were pepper spraying from the front. It was like pepper spray all over the place. So it had gotten all over me, and I didn't realize. But once I actually, tried to clean my glasses and just moved it a little bit, like a big chunk of it actually came into my face, and that really impacted me that day. I was blinded for, a good half an hour, 40 minutes. And the generosity of people around me, they really helped me out, because at that moment I just had to move off the road and I couldn't film anything. I really struggled. But to be honest, the worst part of being pepper sprayed, which is what I learned that day, was when you actually go home and have a shower, because it goes all over your body, and you learn the hard way. You feel the pain. For a few.
No perverse pleasure in that. No perverse pleasure at all.
It was the most painful experience having a shower, because I didn't know what to expect. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna clean this off myself. I'm gonna get clean, whatever. And I was like yelling from the shower. I remember calling out to my wife to bring me milk while I'm in the shower.
Yeah. I was exactly the same.
Like a baby, to pour stuff over my body, and this is all over my body. So it actually lasts for the day after as well. I just rubbed my eyes.
Yeah.
And same thing. I had a reaction. So I was just sprayed, not significantly. I can't imagine people who have, like that lady that got sprayed, that elderly lady that got sprayed directly in the face like that. The pain that she would have been going through over the next couple of days. It's hard to imagine. And yeah, definitely a new experience for me. And yeah, but it is what it is.
What was extraordinary that day, though, was I was helping a man who'd been sprayed, a young man called Robbie, and pouring milk on his face for ages. And then I was finding all these other people walking around with milk, because there were so many people pepper sprayed that everybody was just running into the 7-Elevens and things and just buying milk. Everybody's walking around with containers, their backpacks are full of milk. And I was cleaning these Australians. I think I did about 5 of them. And they got their heads back, and you're pouring milk over their face. And I was asking them, why are you here? And they're going, I want my freedom. I want my freedom. And they're up like this, and with milk pouring over their face. And you're thinking, this is a new Australia. And these are young people. A lot of people say, oh, the young people don't care. They're not there. These were young people who were baffled that this was happening in their country. And that's what I saw at the shrine. That's what I saw on the day in Flinders Street where you got pepper sprayed. When those young men were up, when those weapons came out, I was in the front line with the young men. And the young men were outraged that the police were holding weapons. We didn't know what they were. They looked real. They looked like were outraged that they were being aimed at them. This was Australian. This was their brothers and sisters aiming weapons at them. It's been some extraordinary moments, but I think I saw many happening quickly. Often you guys don't have enough time to stop and think, wow, that's happened. That's happened. That's happened. It'd be the same with you, Jerry. If you've been there since Monaco, it's one outrageous moment after another, actually stopping and going, it really is sort of a tide of tyranny that we've all been surfing, especially you, Rukshan,
Michael,
where you're just filming it all.
Is that just worth mentioning just for today? I know we're coming towards the end, that propaganda war that we've been talking about was in full force today. So we
oh yeah.
went to the Salvation Army today and had just a slight protest there. It was just simply really what we're trying to do is highlight and point out the fact that unvaccinated people, there's a sign on the window. It's there. It's verifiable. I know you've got a photo of it, Michael. The unvaccinated people are not allowed into the Salvation Army. So we went there to make that point, that particularly that institution, which is meant to offer solace to the underprivileged and the poor, etc., cannot access the venue. Now, they can use weasel words to get around that, say, well, we can meet them down the side and we come to their house if they need all that. But the reality is there's that sign exists on the window. So they've come out today and you know, in the mainstream media, if you like, and sort of painted us as a bunch of lunatics fringe that are just coming to yell at the Salvation Army workers for no reason other than obviously to destroy our cause, because that's simply what you would do if you went to the Salvation Army and just started yelling at at their workforce. And it wasn't the point at all.
People were going, you're wrecking your brand. I'm going, we're not a brand. We're fighting here for freedom. What do you think? We're Coca-Cola? We think we're trying to establish a new soft drink here? You know,
is that what people said to you? You're wrecking,
yeah,
you're wrecking
someone
your brand.
called up and said, you've got it, you're wrecking the brand. What brand? Then there's but what was really interesting was when I came home after Damien had talked to them, a woman sent me, lots of people contacted me congratulating us. One woman said she was offered a hamper by the Salvation Army for her and her kids. They've lost all their jobs because they're not vaccinated. And she went down to grab the hamper and they wanted to see a vaccination passport. When she couldn't show it, they said she couldn't have the hamper. So everything that guy who was on the phone to Damien saying, yes, we're doing it, it's bullshit. And the thing that got me today was the words chiseled into the wall of the office, you know, the Salvation Army, for the salvation of the people. And yet at the moment, that's just simply not happening. And all we were trying to point out was not that the Salvation Army are bad, not that the only bad people work there. No, you're good people. But at the moment, you're doing a wrong thing. You're
we're highlighting uncomfortable questions for people.
You're
questions that
people and
don't want to see
against these people who are unvaccinated, and they need clothes for their kids, and you've got to let them in, especially in the country towns, because in the country towns, the people that turn up and say, like Jerry turns up, and I've grown up with Jerry my whole life, and say, sorry, Jerry, you can't come in. It creates an even greater divide. And it's just creating division. And we just believe that the Salvation Army is a global organization, the St. Vincent's de Paul and all those have the power to tell the government, no, we're an essential service. We're not going to follow these mandates. Find us if you want. We'll go to court, but we're not going to force them. We're going to follow the teachings of Jesus that we're based on, and we're going to ignore your laws. That's all we were suggesting.
Well, it's a pretense that there's business as usual and there's no segregation going on. It's an absolute pretense, and people would prefer to live in that fantasy than face the reality of what's confronting us as a culture. And if we have to point it out, well, so be it. Sorry, Jerry.
I just want to say, you brought up the issue of the Salvation Army, and I grew up in a country, South Sudan before it became South Sudan, that 99% of the schools was sponsored by missionaries. And Salvation Army fall in that category. So in the morning, I was on my 10 o'clock break at work. And then real Rukshan came up. He was doing a live. And then I clicked on it and I saw where he was showing. And then the live finishes, my time finishes, then I left. You brought the point up. What I'm trying to say is this. I want to support the point that organizations like Salvation Army should not at all be driven by government. They should not be supporting government mandates. I'm not against the government as such. But when the government is a government like the government of Daniel Andrews, who keep repeatedly lying, is spinning things for political purpose, not for our own safety. A man who cannot recall his own decisions. I expect Salvation Army to say, no, we are not going to implement the mandate from a man who cannot recall his own decisions, but we are going to stand with people. So what you did today is 100% perfect. But the fear is, if you get a charity organization that people need to rent to, when the government becoming tyrannical, joining the government, where do we go?
Yeah.
Because I thought when the government become more dictatorial, tyrannical, we run to Salvation Army, we run to other charity organizations. Now that they're the one running to the government and supporting the government narrative without even questioning what the government is doing, that brought me back to the question that the very reason that this civilization was formed on is actually going down. And the people like us who are speaking up to restore it are the enemies now.
Yeah, we are. Yep.
Oh, yeah, we are.
We're portrayed as the enemy. Yeah.
That's why I can't believe that, they put Rukshan on that other march, and this is why we said about white supremacy. That was the joke. They're portraying this humble man who everybody adores. I mean, it literally adores. A true folk hero of our time. I know you don't like taking compliments, Rukshan, so stop looking at your microphone and look up and take them. But you do. You're seen for your gentleness, your nobleness, and your courage and bravery to continue to show the story of what's going on from your view, unedited, so people can decide for themselves. It's extraordinary brave work. And yet this other group are just seeing you as, I mean, when they just called you fascist, it's just like, sorry, I mean, can't you put any energy or any commitment into your lives? I mean, come on, and it's just ridiculous. And Nazis and everything else, it's just utterly ridiculous. So yeah, so here's where we are. I have a thing that a young woman came on once, and I'll do it again, and I'll let you both have a go, and then we'll wrap it up, and I'll play that video again. And she came on and said, we have a moral obligation not to sell hopelessness, no matter how tight its grip. And a lot of people at the moment are feeling hopeless. So Jerry, you go first. Sell us some real hope, not bullshit hope, but real hope.
The real hope is that if you can listen to this live video from a man who was born in South Sudan, grew up in the war area, who have seen everything that your father and yourself have seen in this country, and is coming to speak sense to you, that means there's a problem in your country. If I am the one to tell you that there's a problem, and you actually follow me, and I've been here for 5 years, you have to follow. You have to believe that there's a problem. And your future is not with those who tells you what you need to do. Your future is your intuition. Listen to yourself. Listen to those you follow. And believe me, if you are a political person and you're not among the top 1%, that means your family has no future in this country, because the Labour Party and the Liberal Party has got their candidate line up for the next 100 years. So the future of your children is not with mainstream political parties. It's not with mainstream media. It's with the normal Australian that you have been told are the enemies. So get out there, interact with everybody, learn new things that you have never been taught. And when you come back home, you will tell your mom and your dad that, Daddy, the Australia I've met outside there is different from the one you keep telling me. And I walk in the crowd and I've seen teenagers. And those teenagers I've met chatting with them. They make me come up every single day.
Yeah.
Because they will be the one to remember my name in this country than my own parent back in South Sudan. So there's hope in this country. As long as we keep talking to each other, we keep meeting outside the politics, outside the mainstream media, we have hope in this country. And I'm hopeful that it will happen before my life finish.
Yep. Beautiful. Rukshan, you'll go.
Oh, look, I think for me, from what I've seen, particularly from all this negative energy that's been around our state for so long and around our country, I think there is a lot of positives that we can take away. And I think for me, just speaking from the space that I'm working in, just to see that people are more attuned to what, the media is doing, more attuned to the fact, the way that they try to construct these certain narratives, not all the time, but, particularly during times that matter, that people can actually see for themselves now how these things are happening. You know, the hope that I'm seeing is really the birth and the growth of a lot of things like what you guys are doing, a lot of the independent media, a lot of the younger independent media as well. You know, people getting out there and just sharing things and using these tools to kind of share these messages. I know sometimes the messages can be negative, sometimes the stories can be hard to, you know, hear and all this kind of stuff, but there is something in that, you know, we're maybe getting away from our attachment to this old system controlled by, you know, the media. I'm just talking about the media. And it's great, and it's great to see. It makes me very hopeful for the future, because, you know, it really shows you that we can potentially create something that is more wholesome, that is more reflective of who we are as a community and as a people. And I think that gives me great hope. And I think a lot of people should take encouragement from that. Not just being politically aware, just more so just being aware of, you know, access to, you know, these different types of content. And, you know, I think that's a great thing. And, you know, I'm very grateful to be working within that space as well. And I continue, and I hope to continue to do that.
And you're both doing it.
Yeah, and again, like on that as well, on Jerry as well. I think Jerry is a great hope, and you know, I think you're seeing this kind of, you know, I keep telling people as well within my community, like, we should speak out and share our passion for this country, share our stories, and get out there. And I think, you know, Jerry doing that might inspire more people to do that. More so speaking from the heart, speaking from his experiences, and speaking about, you know, what this country means. And, you know, I think those are the things that I'm looking forward to most going forward. And I think, you know, we're really seeing maybe the start of something a bit different. And I think that's a great thing.
Mentioned Michael too. We wanted to talk about it on the show. I just wanted to point out, because we hadn't had a chance, that's I don't want to be Pollyanna about, you know, looking for hope where there isn't any in this story necessarily. The Asha Faye Vander Sanden, a South Australian 28-year-old South Australian woman, was sentenced to 6 months jail this week, maximum security women's penitentiary, for disobeying the Cho directives in that state. And that's Premier Stephen Marshall was a Liberal Premier. So it goes to Jerry's point. It's both Liberal and Labor. We sound like we come in hard on Labor on this show sometimes, but that's because we're dealing with Daniel Andrews mainly. So, but on a hopeful note, we're going to Shepparton on Saturday, which is something to look forward to.
And on
Michael, you're using the show.
Yep. What's his name? Jerry's coming with us.
I am
Jerry.
coming.
Oh, we're going to have to squeeze him in, squeeze his photo in somewhere.
Yeah,
otherwise they'll accuse us of being white supremacists. You know that for sure.
They
left Jerry off it. They left Jerry off the poster.
See, Jerry, you're on the whole back of it. I can't turn around. If you're on the back of my screen, it's all you. No, they're doing the poster right. They're redoing the poster now. So you're coming. There's a few others tagging along too. So
Craig Backman's coming.
Great day. In fact,
Damien Richardson,
Jerry and myself might be going up in the Reignite Democracy truck, so that could be fun. With our,
you know what I did with Rukshan last Sunday? I went to Rukshan place. It drove me together so that we can actually help the climate change guys. So we'll do the same thing with you. I'll just drive to where you are, and then we'll carpool to Shepparton.
And another positive note, Michael's been using this show as a platform to try and find me a partner. So at some stage, Rukshan, I might be calling on your, wedding videography skills.
100%.
Give us a discount rate, mate. I'm
sure
you'll give us a discount rate.
Mates rates. Yeah, mates
How
rates.
about you, Jerry? Are you married?
Sorry?
Are you married?
No, divorced, but I want to marry again.
Oh, there you go.
You're on the lookout as well.
Oh, there goes my
Jerry here who's single, and we've got
I'm
Damien here who's single.
Get your own platform, Jerry.
No, I've got somebody already in my life. It's just
Okay, forget Jerry. He's off the thing.
Come and take the photos.
It's just Damien. Damien is single. He'll be in Shepparton. Come down, check him out. It's like marry an actor in Who'll Marry the Actor.
A former actor. If you've seen what Twitter's saying today, I will never work as an actor again.
Auctioning him off.
Wow.
The joke about Twitter saying that I won't.
Damien off.
The joke about Twitter saying that I'll never act again is like they've made that choice. Didn't they think I knew when I came out with these ideas that there was a good chance that the acting fraternity wasn't going to embrace me again? I mean, seriously. I must come across as a total moron.
I thought you acted beautifully in the opening. You had me convinced. Sorry, Jack.
Michael and Rukshan, I want to tell you one thing. If one of your viewers come to Chapterton next week, or maybe anywhere in the rally, and you want to take a photo of us, that photographer needs to make sure that he need more light on Jerry than real Rukshan, than all the three of you. Because if they want to see me in the photo, I need to put a lot of light on me.
Yeah,
there's no way the three of us are going to get anywhere near Rukshan. He's got that big crowd of people kissing and hugging and taking selfies.
Right. Yeah,
you have to get a ticket. You know when you go to Coles and you take a ticket? That's what he's doing now. He's got it on his back. You take a ticket. I'm number 55 selfie. Honestly, that's what it's like. It's a big love thing.
I had to hold his camera the other day. I had to hold his camera last Saturday so that I can actually film him taking photos with people. You want to take photos with him? And I love that. I love doing that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's great. No, it's extraordinary.
He's a legend.
You guys are funny.
Yeah, that's funny, man. That's funny. And there's and it was really the other night, ASIO missed out because a lot of us got together in a secret location, and we were sitting with Rukshan, and it just felt, Topher was there. It just felt like we were coming together and getting stronger as a group. So to get together now and talk like this, I think it's really interesting that we've lost the bill, but instead of being crushed again, we're starting to get organized and work together and say, how can we do this happen? And so it's really, I feel really honored to work with both of you. Seriously, I'm really looking forward to Chapterton. And I'm so grateful you came down today, Rukshan, and we started a conversation, which is all we wanted to do. So I really thank you for that, man.
No, thank you guys. Thank you both for having us here.
The white supremacist gag, you know?
Yeah. Is it true that you Is it true that you were going to white up for it, Rukshan?
I mean, I could have gotten away with it as well, but I just didn't have the time. No, but look, I mean, seriously, like there's nothing more to do than laugh at these things sometimes. Some of the things they're saying, and it's crazy, you know. Like they're calling me a white supremacist, but like I'm, eating my curry. Hanging out with my ethnic parents and going to Indian weddings and all this kind of stuff. Like I'm the furthest thing away from this my whole life, so it's just crazy. And it's great.
Hey, if you need a second photographer, I'll come along. It'll be like you can live stream it.
Yeah, there you go. I think people should definitely just laugh at this stuff and not take it seriously. I think it's just a lot of it's absurd and deranged. And I'm more than happy to have a laugh at it with you guys.
It wasn't so serious at times. It's almost that, isn't it? It would be funny if it wasn't so serious.
That's true. That's true. 100%.
No worries. Okay, well, good night. I'm going to end with what we started with. You can stay in the studio if you want, guys. If you have to go, that's fair enough. Just go. And this is a Jewish man talking about how the Jews began to get ostracized in Germany, how it happened in small incremental steps. It's quite scary to hear. If people say there's no parallels, well, listen to this. Good night, gentlemen, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on our show tonight.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
In those early 1930s, you can read an inscription on the benches. Jews must not sit on these benches. You could say, it's unpleasant, it's not fair, it's not right. But after all, there are so many benches around. You can sit somewhere else. Of course you can. There was a swimming pool, and over its door an inscription read, Jews are forbidden to enter. You could say, well, pleasant this is not, but there are so many places in Berlin where you can take a bath or swim, so many lakes, canals, it's nearly like Venice. At the same time, you can read somewhere else, Jews must not belong to German singing associations. So what? All right, they want to sing, they want to make music. Let them just meet somewhere else, they will do their singing. All right. What comes up later is an order, really. More of an order than of an inscription. Non-Aryan children must not play with Aryan children, with the German children. All right, they'll play on their own. And then you read, we only sell bread and food to Jews after 5 p.m. Right, less choice, this makes your life harder. But after all, after 5 p.m. you can still do your shopping. And that's how it is done, step by step, slowly. And they become acquainted with that thought, familiar with the idea that they are different people, that they are alien people, that they are the people that carry germs, that cause pandemics. And this now is a horror. What came later was something that developed immediately. Jews could not get jobs, they could not emigrate. And then, quickly, Jews would be sent to ghettos, to Kaunas, to Riga, to my ghetto. Auschwitz did not fall suddenly from the skies. It was pittering-pattering in all those tiny steps. It was approaching until what happened here behind me did happen.